what are those non-negotiable policies that every organization should have by now, because it's going to come. So by now, what they should have according to you?
Oh, first and foremost, I mean, it's a no-brainer that you need a data protection and a data privacy policy. Those are two different things in one policy, but two different things, right? The data protection is something and
Absolutely.
data privacy is something else. So you need to have a policy which very clearly talks of definitions of personal data, types of personal data that is going to get handled by the company, what the company is going to do with the data, what are the data privacy principles that are applicable, what is the accountability, do we have a grievance redressal officer, or all of that compliance that comes in.
Okay.
Lawyers are very good at this. They will draft a wonderful policy. uh, the question is who is reading it and who is acting as per the policy. So a policy cannot be a document. A policy has to be a way of life in the organization. And that is the gap. The gap is we are all very happy with very well written policies because they look good. The question is, one, have we understood it? Are they easy to implement? Is there any oversight on the implementation? Is there any oversight on the gaps? So now there is a policy, but maybe there is an implementation in a gap in the implementation. And then do we have a roadmap to cover that gap? That okay, today we have a policy, out of 10 recommended things we have 6 in place, and the 4 are going to get implemented in the next 3 years or next 2 years or next 6 months, and these are this is the plan for that. That is how a policy needs to be looked at. And leave alone data privacy and data protection policy. Take any HR policy which you all must have signed when you joined the organization. The question is how many people have read it. I know you all have signed it and accepted it, and they will work either for you or against you depending on how you are in the organization. The question is, have we understood it? Have we debated it? Have we questioned our HR manager on it or our manager on it? Have we said, oh, I don't agree to a certain clause in the policy? How aware are we? And the same is applicable to all these policies. Awareness, understanding, and then translating that into action becomes very important. So this is sort of, a call of caution that, okay, you may have wonderful policies. The lawyers are happy because they got to draft it, they got paid for it. The question is, how many of us have really understood what it means? The same goes for the privacy policy that gets published for the data principle to read.
Yeah. Right.
See, more and more the regulators will come heavily down upon us if the terms and conditions are not easy to understand. Because let us not forget, the law is for them, not for us as organizations. The law is for them who don't understand law. So the law is for even the smallest of the vendor or the smallest of the customer who may not understand your policy, which is written in very maybe fine English or even a very fine regional language. It needs to be in a language that a layman understands. And that is also where a lot of work will have to be put in. That is, I mean, I've just talked about data protection and data privacy policy. Another very important policy that goes hand in hand with this is the information security policy. Because the way we have to follow privacy, we also have to protect that data, and hence therefore security also becomes an important function.
Absolutely.
Not only the information security policy, because then everybody will talk of ISMS, but in addition to that, something as simple as acceptable use policy. What is acceptable and what is not? Something in very clear terms. How is a company IT infrastructure expected to be used. And
Right.
if you use it in any other manner, that will result in a, say, a non-compliance.
Right.
Now, now another very interesting policy I always felt was data classification, because okay, to put it in again in another way, you will protect only something which is of value, right? You need not protect everything.
Yeah. Right.
So how do you put a value to data is very important. How do you classify? Are you classifying it at restricted, confidential, personal, intellectual property, data in the public domain? Whatever is your classification, your controls will depend on it. And therefore, data classification policy becomes again a very important and a crucial exercise, uh, because of a couple of things. One, it will bring about great clarity or the data that the company has. See, I also hear a lot of people say, oh, we don't have personal information, we don't deal with personal information, could be one. Or people tend to say, we do collect personal information, but we don't share it. It's a company policy to not to share. It's a very blanket and a very broad statement, but that's not true. Without knowing, you are sharing it to with multiple parties. So this visibility will come the moment you start the data classification exercise. Another very important function of a data let me say an output of a data classification policy is that how much money will you actually require to protect it? Because if you say at the end of that exercise, 80% of the data that I have need not be protected, then you don't need that much money that perhaps you started thinking about in the first place, or you
Right.
don't even need such a large team. So that
True.
becomes, as I said, I love that policy because you get to see so much of different types
Clarity
of
is there. Yeah.
uh, companies deal with. And it's, so many times we've done this, people are also surprised. They also say, oh, we didn't even know we had this. And we
Absolutely.
didn't even know we have been like hoarding that data for the last 30 years, because
Wow.
nobody talked about data retention policy, and at some point of time
Yes.
you have to delete it. So people have been sitting on volumes of sort of legacy data for a long time. And last but not the least is the incident response or the incident management policy, something that you cannot forget. Breach notifications will be taken very, very seriously now. And even if if the DPDP Act does not actually empower the data fiduciary to go to the data protection board and ask for, say, compensation. For example, let's say some five-star hotel chain reports a breach, and I know in the last, say, 6 months I have stayed in those hotels at least a couple
Mm.
of times, and I'm worried now about my data, but I can't do anything, right? Because I can't go to the data protection board as a citizen, but I
Right.
can go to the consumer court and I can say that this is valuable information. And just imagine, thousands of people going to the consumer courts and asking for compensation. It is going to be, it is going to be an interesting development to watch.